Okay, so we've been talking about all of this. Monday they rolled out with a lot of new stuff, a lot of new information. And I posted a story about it, and I've gotten a lot of feedback of people saying that's not true, that's not happening. And I'm like, actually, it is, and you just
Right.
haven't heard it yet from your broker.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one of the biggest things that they talked about yesterday was that we are no longer going to be able to have a predetermined or pre-negotiated amount that we can offer out to buyer agents. And, forever we said, okay, this is the commission, X amount goes to the listing agent, X amount goes to the buyer's agent. And that's where we sit. And that's what you get. You get what you get. They've changed it. So now that amount cannot be discussed. I mean, I'm sure we can have a conversation about it and say, are you willing to offer out, something? And we're going to have a conversation with them because we're going to have to do net sheets. We're going to have to show them what that's going to look like, but it might vary. And they're going to, sorry, my cats are knocking things down. They are going to have to basically buyers agents are going to have to negotiate for what they want in their contracts that they send us for their on their listing or for their clients. So it's going to be right along with occupancy or appraisal guarantees. It's going to be one of the terms of the contract. So that's a
Mhm.
big change. I'm sure eventually it'll become second nature, but I think it's going to be a big impact in our worlds. And I think buyer agents now more than ever are going to have to really show their value. And I was listening to a Tom Ferry podcast the other day about buyer agency, and they said, and this should be, but long gone are the days of being a door opener and getting paid. You cannot just open a door, show them the house, walk out, and get paid when they want to write an offer. You're going to have to show your value, and you're going to have these people are going to have to sign buyer agent agreements with you prior to even looking at the house, or you're not going to get paid. And, prior to anything, I mean, there's a lot that's going into this. And, I think this is going to be a big change in the industry. And I think we're going to have a lot to learn. So I wanted to bring Isaiah on today to talk about how we can really kind of attack this. So my first instinct when I had Isaiah come on was we're going to have to convince the sellers to pay a buyer agent, which I still think we're going to have to do. So we're going to have to figure out how to overcome those objections with them on why they should pay, but also more so figuring out how to prove our value to the buyers to make them want to sign an exclusive buyer agency contract, because they don't necessarily have to. They can do a single property agency relationship form, and you're only getting paid on that one. So they could be shopping around with 20 different agents if they wanted to. So there's a lot that's going into this, and how to kind of create that relationship with them that makes them want to sign that contract, makes them want to work with you. And I figured Isaiah was the perfect person to have on to talk about this, because I'm in his coaching. I know a lot of the stuff he does, and I just thought he would be the perfect person for this. So thank you, Isaiah.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm happy to do it. And one of the things just to kind of start off with, I want to get the feel of the room. How many people on a scale of 1 to 10 are nervous about the change, or a little
Okay.
bit of little bit of fear on the change? If you just drop it in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, where you're at uh, with with like how nervous you are with the change. And there's no right or wrong answer. If we're going to solve problems, we really need to be open with what we're thinking, right? And what's going on in our mind.
I feel like I'm like at a 9. And I say that only because it's unknown, right? We
Mhm.
don't know how this is all going to play out. And I feel like there's a lot of change. And I feel like I'm just very nervous about how this is going to play out, how to have those conversations with these buyers off the bat. Because from what I'm understanding, and Julie, maybe, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the video from yesterday, because there is no set commission determined by the listing agent for a buyer coming in, the buyer essentially has to be prepared to pay for that commission if it can't be negotiated into the contract. And we won't even know who's paying commission until the executed contract is filled out and signed. So every buyer essentially has to go into this offer knowing there's a solid chance you're going to have to pay whatever commission we've agreed to. And I feel like that's going to be a very hard conversation to have. So that is where my anxiety level comes from.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Julie,
So
you're muted, Julie, if you want to say something.
No, I've always said this business, success in this business is about how many uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And I think it's, especially from the buyer side, well, I guess I would say from the seller side too. That's what makes me the most nervous, not about what documents to sign or all that. It's these conversations. And to Nicole's point, like so many agents, we just don't know what we don't know. And I think there's so much erroneous information that's going to be out there. It's going to take a long time to sort this out. It's going to be wild, wild west for a while because every brokerage is teaching things differently, it seems. Or to Nicole's point with her story that she did, people like challenging her on this. So I worry that we're just not all on the same page as agents. That worries me the most. Our trainings are different. Exactly. The information. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
That was the question I had for them yesterday. I said, is this an EXP thing or is this nationwide thing? And they said, no, this is NAR. I actually had an EXP agent arguing with me yesterday and they said, well, I've talked to other brokerages and they said they're not doing this. And I'm like, at that point, I just was like, I'm going to figure it out.
You do you. I'm going to do it.
I can't fix that. Watch the meetings. You missed them yesterday. Watch them. See what you think, Yeah,
and I think that's a good lead into what I want to cover here today. If you guys, for your notes, there's 3 things that I'm hoping that we can get through today, or 3 big takeaways. The first one is I want to talk about how to take advantage of opportunities when there's change. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. The second thing is I'm going to give you some practical ideas on how you can separate yourself from your competition now that buyers are going to be interviewing other agents more than ever before. And then third thing is to leave you with some scripts and dialogues that we've put together and that we're using to overcome any objections you're going to get with post NAR settlement. Does that sound good? If we got through those 3 things, would that be a winning call, Nicole?
Yes,
does that work?
Absolutely. Yes.
Cool. So starting with the first one, and I'm going to share my screen in a minute, is the first one is how to take advantage of opportunities when there's change. And there's 2, here's the thing. Anyone who says they're not nervous at all, in my opinion, is complete bullshit. So in other words, like there is even for your high level brokers, even somebody who's well-trained in persuasion and negotiation, there's always going to be some level of nervousness because of concern of how they're going to be affected. So if we're just going to put it out on the table, right? Every single person is a little nervous because it's change and nobody knows exactly what to expect. Now, with that said, here's the difference. The difference between what I call a CEO mindset versus a professional mindset is the CEO looks for opportunities to take advantage of the change that's coming. And they take that nervous energy and they channel it and they ask themselves a critical question. Why am I feeling nervous? Okay. And sometimes to process through these things and to get rid of that nervousness and to change it towards more of a positive outlook and positive focus, it's first important to identify why, right? Would we agree that sometimes, Tony Robbins says this, the quality of our life is often determined by the quality of questions we ask ourselves. So if we ask ourselves shitty questions, we come up with shitty solutions, but if we ask ourselves good questions, we come up with good solutions. So it's really important to first ask ourselves why, list those things out, and then move towards, well, what do we need to do about these things? So like maybe a reason is I don't know what to say, right? That's why I'm nervous. I don't know what to say. I don't know how I'm going to make myself separated from the marketplace. I don't know what I'm going to do to be different, right? Would we all agree those are kind of the whys, right? And if we identify those things, and the reason why it's important to ask the why is now you can list out all the things. And here's what you do. The next step is once you have all the reasons why you're nervous, you just put solutions in place as fast as humanly possible to turn that nervousness into opportunity. And when I give you an example, when I first got involved in real estate, we were going through the thick of short sales. And I took over this team that was primarily we were a listing domination team, but they were running into short sale after short sale after short sale. What they were doing is they were neglecting them because they were too nervous to deal with them, or had all these preconceived ideas on dealing with short sales. And so, but what I saw is when I took over that real estate brokerage and became a CEO, I saw it as an opportunity, because what I said to myself, what if we could put a system in place to take advantage of all these short sales that most agents don't want to deal with, right? For those of you that have dealt with a short sale before, it's not necessarily, if you don't have a system in place, it can be a royal pain in the you-know-what, right? So we put a system in place to deal with short sales, and we, out of 151 transactions that we did our first full year together, I think about 20 of them ended up being short sales that we completely left off the table before. So and I'm just sharing that example. And then as we ended up scaling to over 1,000 transactions, one of the ways that we did that is look for unique opportunities. So can I get everyone's commitment that we're going to identify why we're in any reason that we could have a blocker or a concern or a question or nervousness, we're going to commit to identifying what those things are, right? And then next, we're going to commit to coming up with solutions as fast as possible to get us from where we're at now to and why we're thinking what we're thinking to a solution, so we could take advantage of this opportunity. Is that a fair action step for everybody? Yes, in the chat, if we're on the same page. And that's from a mindset. And this is how I'm looking at this, and how I'm trying to teach and train my coaching clients is it's okay to be nervous. It's okay. It's okay to have questions. It's okay. But what's not okay as the CEO of your own company is not moving quickly to the other side to put in solutions in place. That's your responsibility. That's our responsibility to work through that together. And that's kind of what we're going to dive into next. Okay. So the next thing is like, well, where are the opportunities? Like, what do I do? Like, how do I turn this into an opportunity? And really put on that CEO mindset. And so I have this document I'm going to share with you. It's what we go over, we went over with our coaching clients like 3 months ago. Because while everyone is saying, oh, it's no big deal, it's not going to create a lot of change, or like there's commissions aren't going to be negotiated, I called BS and I said, it's going to change more than people are willing to admit right now. And so I gave this guideline to my coaching clients to help them. So we just kind of went through adaptability, being proactive, and growth opportunities just now. Because I think we can all agree, if our mindset is not right towards dealing with this, we're not going to come up with the best solutions. Agreed? So our mindset's right, and it has to be right. So what I did is I provided this document, and I'm going to send this to Nicole to get out to everybody. But I provide this document with some ideas on how to position yourself that's different from everybody else. You'd be shocked how many people don't have a buyer consultation or formal presentation. So if you don't have that yet, just like you have a listing presentation, that has to be the like high on the checklist of what you got to put together as a formal buyer consultation or presentation, whatever you want to call it, that has a script and dialogue associated with it. So what I did in this document is instead of like developing an exact script or dialogue that you should have with your clients, I put together kind of like stages of what your presentation should look like if you don't have one together yet. So you can go and take these bullet points and make them your own and kind of customize your own script or dialogue. Okay. And so I want you to write, there's really, to do this well and to do this right, there's a couple steps here. Number one, there should be like call it a PowerPoint, or I know Nicole's going to have a guest on here. We're both a huge fan of High Note, and she's got a guest coming on how to use High Note to do put together a presentation that's really, really done well. But it's got to also make sure you have the right psychology in that presentation. So this is going to make sure the psychology is built into that presentation with some recommendations on what you should be talking about. So things like pre-qualification, right? doing the proper discovery to find pain and motivation. So important, because here's the thing. What's different, this is always the case, to Julie's point, it was always the case on the seller side. If you didn't find pain and motivation and you didn't tailor your presentation around the pain and motivation, right? They're gonna go interview another listing agent, the one that hits on that pain and motivation and wins them over and convinces them that they're the better option to solve that problem or that pain and motivation is gonna most likely get the listing. Well, folks, I'm gonna share with you, it's the same psychology now with the buyer consultation and the buyer presentation. During your pre and qual, the number one objective needs to be to find the pain and motivation of what you're dealing with and to dig deep through that. Does that make sense to everybody? Are we on the same page? Drop yes in chat if we're following along. And so I have a script and dialogue that I'm going to improve. So if you want more of an in-depth script, you can look at our exact script. It will be attached to this overall training document. You can drill deeper on that, and you can take that script and take that dialogue, to kind of go through that more in depth, because we don't have time to do that today. Or Nicole, if you wanted me to come back to maybe do a second training to go in depth on the script and dialogue and to do more of a role play on that, we could do that, maybe as a follow-up training. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So this will walk you stage one, like what's that pre-qual look like? Finding pain and motivation. One of the things that is really, really important within that is sometimes they tell you like, yeah, I'm willing to look up to a home that's worth $450,000. We'll challenge them on that. So you're telling me if I sent you a home for $500,000, you wouldn't look at it? Or is that a possibility, right? If you could qualify for it. So all of that's in your script and dialogue to make sure. And here's the number one thing with the pre-qual, folks, is it's going to be more important than ever before that you really, really hone in and help them think through what they want and what they don't want. Because if you don't do that, and you don't do that well, and they go shop with another agent, and another agent does that really well to help them think through what they really want and don't want, you could lose that contract. Would you agree? Or you could lose that deal, right? So that pre-qual step is going to be so important. And to make sure that you have a pathway for them, please write this down. What's going to separate you from everybody else is to make sure you have a clear success pathway that they can follow along with. That's what these stages do to make them feel comfortable with working with you and to know what to expect every step of the way while you're looking at the home, while you go under contract, what happens after the contract, and this is what this document is framed out to help you create that client journey from. Okay. And this is what I call a VIP home seller program. And what you can then do, and this is where we used to do this on the listing side all the time, and we would average 20 to 30 listings like clockwork with our teamage. We'd have brokerage, but we ran a teamage, what we call team within the brokerage, people that were actually on our team. And what we did is we had a tiered approach where depending on what services that the seller wanted, okay, what we would offer a different level of commission. So, and we would tier that out. Well, one thing that we're working on with our team right now is how could that tier approach structure work with this specific process, considering we can't have a standard commission anymore. Well, if you can't have a standard commission anymore, does it make sense to maybe offer different options and playing around with different ideas and brainstorming around ideas of what those options could look like? And so this document will kind of help you get that process start. I also have other ideas on this overall training that you could use to really separate yourself from offering different options. But here's the takeaway. Okay. Would you all agree your program has to be different than the next agent's if you're going to make sure you win that contract? Or it's got to be marketed better, communicated better, and you have to have something that appears to be unique than the next agent, or you could lose that contract. Are we all in agreement on that? That's important? And that's what I want you guys to take away and look at some of the ideas on that VIP homebuyer program and figuring out how to frame it out yourself. Okay. The next opportunity here, folks, this is huge. Start doing things to educate your clients. Start doing marketing around this topic, because the client thinks they know, but they don't know. So here's where the opportunity is. Do education materials, do events, right? Work with your vendor partners. Like, this is the greatest time, in my opinion, on the planet Earth to get a whole bunch of agents together to do a buyer educational event where you could go through and educate them, right? And use that as an opportunity when you provide them the education to get them to want to work with you. I put a little template in here on how I research and come up with different topics. You may like this, you may not, but this is just here. This is what my team uses to do research, to find anyone who's talking about this, and then kind of coming up with our own hooks and our own video ideas. I just attached that in here for you to take a look at. And then also I've identified some skills that like 100% need to be attached, or need to be worked on. The one skill set is making sure that you have your scripts and dialogues down. Can we all agree? Like, we need to have scripts and dialogues down. Okay. So, Nicole, in this document, what I did is I broke down, kind of like and we're updating this constantly throughout our coaching network and our partners. And so I guess I want to pause here and let's talk about scripts and dialogues. When you're talking to a buyer, what are some things that you're nervous about communicating? Let's have some open dialogue and maybe do some role play around that and see if we've got a script for it.
So, I mean, my biggest concern is talking to clients, talking to buyers who now we are going to have the conversation with them that we're going to put in an offer on this property. And one of the terms is going to be that my commission is covered by them. We have to put it in there as a, concession. And there is a chance that it couldn't be negotiated out of the contract and you would be responsible for that commission. Are you comfortable with that? And I am a little worried on how to have that conversation or how to word that conversation.
So let's have some open dialogue around that. What can we, and I'll give you how I would respond to it, but I want to hear from you guys. First of all, would we agree that this conversation has to be part of our presentation, right? So yeah. It needs to be integrated in our presentation. And so what do you guys think is a good dialogue or track to run off of to have this conversation with them?
Well, I think what I know that I want to kind of learn more about is what can I do to structure my offer when I'm doing an offer for a buyer that could potentially lead for me to be able to have that commission built into that offer. So I think that's going to be a huge first offer myself of what I feel to be best. Because I do feel like there's going to be ways around that. And I kind of heard scuttle a little bit, in a number of different ways, but obviously there's a lot of information floating around, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think that is going to be the top part with your buyers. And exactly, either they're going to be able to do it, number one, or they're not going to be able to do it. So I don't, I do sit in the same boat as Nicole, is when somebody cannot do it, now how do you navigate those buyers moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got a good framework for you guys. It's in that stage document. When you're talking about pricing, there's a section in there. We can role play through that a little bit right now. Anybody else have any thoughts or anything else before I share with you how I would do it? How I'm training people to do it. Okay, so let's say Nicole is the buyer, and I've walked through. We've done the qualification. We know like what home Nicole is looking for. I've showed the value, so I've showed the process, and I laid out what to expect, what makes my unique value, and now makes my VIP home buyer program. In other words, that's how I framed this value out. So Nicole, here's my here's my VIP home buyer program. Here's the step process, da, 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 da. Nicole, do you see value in, if we walk through this together, step by step, do you see how I can help you negotiate the best deal on your home, find the right home for you, do it in the least amount of time if we were to do this together?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. So what I did there is I got what I call a yes response, and I got a positive affirmation that we're on the same page. And what that does then is it gives me permission to go to the next step. And what I want to encourage you throughout your presentation is to make sure that you get a yes response. It's a huge part of persuasion, is to make sure that people are in agreement with you throughout each part of your presentation. So before you move on to the next presentation, think of what some people call it a tie down or a yes response. Think about how you can get a yes response at every part of your presentation. And that keeps them in agreement with you. So that way you have less objections to overcome by the end of the presentation. So drop yes in the chat if that makes sense to you. It's a little thing, but a lot of people don't do it in their presentation, and it's a huge mistake. Okay. By not getting that yes response as you're going throughout your presentation. So the reason why I did that now is because I want confirmation that she sees value in me, what I have to offer, and my plan. And if she says yes, now it's okay. So let's talk about the different options here. Now, let's say that you're only offering one option at this point. You just go through the one option. If you have a couple different options that you've mapped out through your VIP home buyer program, or however you're going to position it, you go through what those options are. Now, before you go through those options, it's important to have what I call pre-framing. If you want to write this down, it's called pre-framing. It's setting them up to what to expect and what's happening within the commission structure or the whole thing. And so I would word it something like this. Like, you may have heard of what's happening with this NAR settlement, and there's a whole conversation going around on commissions. And I think it's really important for both of us to understand how commissions really work. Would you agree, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So here's how commissions really work. Really, you have been paying, or a buyer has been paying for their own closing the whole time. It just was negotiated in the sales price that the seller wanted to get. So it's what's called a seller net sheet. And so what the listing agent does is goes over a seller net sheet, and they determined what was going to be paid out to me as the buyer's agent. Well, that was factored into the price of the offer. So even though it didn't feel like the buyer was paying it, they still indirectly were paying it. Does that make sense, Nicole?
Yeah.
So the difference now is only one thing. It's more transparent of how the buyer commission really works. And it's really important to me that you have 100% clarity and 100% transparency as being your advisor, Nicole. It's really important to me that. So here's the options that are on the table for me providing the service that I just laid out for you. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to find a home, okay, where the seller, okay, has a commission structure that's built in place, okay, to be able to pay the commission. Now, that could shake out a couple of different ways. That could be through a seller concession. That could be through if they've offered something, and it's going to be what I do. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the commission for working with me is negotiated in the offer with the seller. In the event, Nicole, for whatever reason, that there's not a seller concession on the table, for whatever reason, the seller's not offering up a portion of their commission, we're just going to use that to negotiate in price. So my next check down is to try to negotiate that in the process of you taking this home. And then the third check down is going to be determining whether you want the home or not, whether it makes sense for that. If they're not willing to, in that process of negotiation, we're going to try to make that decision together. Okay. So Nicole, is this making sense? Do you have any questions about this? Any of this dialogue so far?
So you're saying that I would likely or potentially have to actually pay for my commission. Like, I have to come up with that money?
Yeah. So again, just to kind of recap, the buyer has always paid the agency commission. It's just been cut out through the seller brokerage. It's just being laid out and more transparent. So the goal is to make sure that that process is negotiated in the offer. Is the main goal. If for whatever reason there's a scenario that we run across that that it's not listed in the negotiation, I'm going to try to negotiate that in the price. But this is the commission that I work for based on the service that I'm providing that I have laid out for you. Now, that commission might be different if you have different services or however you map that out. That's going to be where the dialogue changes. But really what you want to do is make sure you're being a consultant in talking about the different scenarios up front that they're going to possibly run into, because they're going to view you as somebody that that is an expert and somebody's in their corner. Now, go ahead and throw me an objection. Whatever objection you think you might get at this point, go ahead and throw me that objection.
I don't know that I have enough money to be able to do that. I
Yeah,
really, I don't
that's
know.
totally fair, and I can appreciate that. And I think, Nicole, we would agree that it's important not to try to put you into a house that, and we factor that up front, right? Based on the homes that we're looking at. Would you agree that's important?
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead and throw me another objection
Oh,
that you guys think you're gonna.
um, what if I just don't want to pay you? What if that were like, what if I found another agent who will do this for, $1,500? I've seen commercials of this
Yeah,
guy who will do it for $1,500. Why should I not use him? Ashley, we'll get to you in just a second. Why
yeah, I totally respect that. And at the end of the day, Nicole, I have your best interest in mind. If you felt like going to a flat fee person was the best for you, then that's totally fine. I respect that and I appreciate that. So I'm going to pause there. Why did I just have that dialogue? Why did I just say that before I responded?
I don't know.
If I just go in and I handle the objection and I don't stay, like, imagine that, yeah, puts them to ease. Thank you. I have to make sure I show massive empathy, and I really make sure that I am in their corner at all costs before I respond, because everything else I say after that, they're not going to listen to, or they're not going to believe if that dialogue does not happen before I respond.
Right.
It's part of an important process of overcoming any objection is before you respond to the objection, you say anything else, you have to show massive empathy. Not like bullshit empathy, massive empathy. Now, I'm not saying you agree with them. Please write that down. I'm not saying you agree with them in the dialogue, but you have to show empathy to say, hey, Nicole, if I was in your shoes and I had an opportunity to pay 1,500 versus XYZ, you're right. I might think that that would be a better opportunity too. So I totally get it. And Nicole, if that ends up being the best choice for you, I want what's best for you. With that said, and then you go through a transition, what's called a transition statement. Now, with that said, Nicole, here's why that probably is not going to be the best option for you. Okay. What happens in scenarios like this is their service is a reflection of their fee. Meaning, what happens, and this is seller or buyer side, is most likely they're not going to be able to deliver the same level of service as I'm going to, is that you see in this VIP home buyer program. And that's also why I offer a communication guarantee, a $10,000 negotiation guarantee, where my services offset this fee. And if for whatever reason you don't think that that's happening, I have an easy exit clause that if you don't think my services are offering your fee, there's an easy exit here. Now, I'm not saying you do any of those things. I'm just sharing with you what's built in, like ideas on what you can build in to mitigate against any concerns they have. An easy exit. Going back to highlighting the value of the VIP program. And then I might close off with saying something like this. So, Nicole, if we look at all these things going back, and you agreed that you saw value in my VIP program, so you see the psychology, I got them to agree. So now I can go back, right, to the dialogue that I got them to agree with. And now I say, hey, would you, you agree that there's a ton of value here, right? Yeah. And here's what I can confidently say with you, Nicole, is I can confidently say with you that, to you, that any commission that you're going to pay me for doing this service is going to far outweigh the value of what I'm going to bring to the table, how I'm going to negotiate the home, and the work that I'm going to do versus the commission you're going to pay by far over any other agent that you work with, or I wouldn't be asking you for your business right now. Because at the end of the day, if you're not happy, I'm not happy. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So here's what's going to be more important. Write this down, folks. Conviction. If you give a really good presentation, you present your value well, you help them overcome their questions, their thoughts, their fears, it's going to come down to then who's the most convicted. Assuming you have all those other things lined up. But if you're wishy-washy about it and you don't sound convicted about the services, are they going to do business with you?
No.
No. So I'm hoping this talk track, and there's 3 steps to this process. If you want to write it down, this is how you overcome any objection. Doesn't matter, seller or buyer. First one is show massive empathy. Second, go back to what you previously agreed on, if there wasn't already an agreement of value. And then third is give a response to the objection, and then go back to the enrollment would be the 4th step. And you keep going through that cycle and just get really good at the dialogue of going through that cycle. And just make sure you have good scripts and dialogues, which is all outlined. I have scripts and dialogues for all of this, which I can send over afterwards.
Thank you.
Was this helpful, folks? On a scale 1 to 10, how helpful going through this dialogue was for you? I want to make sure that we're getting some value out of this. If you drop that in the chat of kind of going through how to frame this out.
It's really good. Ashley, do you want to ask your question or say what you want to say?
I don't know if it's really, a valuable question or not, so I apologize. But, while going through this, being in the industry and listening to the role play and listening to the conversation here, it's somewhat confusing for me, right? Because we're talking about transparency with the commissions. It's always been this way. Now it's just a little bit more transparent. Do you think that might be a little bit over a first-time home buyer's head? Or, is there an easier way we can just say, and I'm just spitballing here. I think when I sit down and have buyer consultations, people are overwhelmed from everything from the inspection to, the next steps and all of these things. So I even think over explaining the commission, maybe, would it be simpler, I guess, to just say like, hey, my fee is $7,500 or my fee is $10,000, and we can negotiate some concessions to help that get paid down. But at the end of the day, this is my fee. Is that something that, do you see the value in that or something like that? Do you think we're going to go that route?
I think you make a good point, Ashley, and it's a really good question. I think it's something that you A/B test, right? I'm for simplicity. The reason why I have that dialogue built in there is because there's 2 schools of thought. Is if you know an objection is going to come, or a concern or a question is going to come, most likely about the commission, you're better off building it into your presentation to overcome the objection. Now, first-time home buyer, to your point, they might not have that objection, but I'm just making a prediction. And again, I want to put this out there. I'm not. I don't have facts behind this, but just based on human nature, and based on working with hundreds and hundreds of sellers, when you're talking about commission, it's almost always a topic of conversation that doesn't just get breezed over when you don't know them. So I'm making a prediction that you're just going to have a good script and dialogue. Ashley, either if it's not in your presentation, to make sure you have that talk track for when it does become an objection. So to answer Ashley's question, I would A/B test it. Maybe start off keeping it simple and then saving that dialogue for an objection. I think that would be a great idea. to start off with, and then test it where you're actually bringing it into the presentation and see how that flows.
Okay.
We had another objection, Isaiah, in the comments. It said, well, I'll just go directly to the listing agent and pass by this extra fee because I use Zillow anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this question. Do you know how it works with representation, and who the listing agent has to who's the listing agent for fiduciary responsibility is?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, let me educate you on how that works. So I made a mistake there. I should have showed empathy. So I should have, the dialogue should have been like this, like, hey, I totally get that. That would, that could be an option, right? To go directly to the listing agent, and you might perceive that you're going to save some commission if you did that. I can see that. Let me ask you, do you understand how buyer representation and seller representation works?
Not really.
Okay, let me explain it to you. So now you explain it to them and say, so what happens is that listing agent, their fiduciary responsibility is to represent the seller. And so that puts you at a disadvantage if you're negotiating or working through things out, because while maybe you've negotiated a home, this is how many homes have you negotiated, Nicole?
None actually.
Oh, okay. So what happens in situations like this is I've negotiated 100 homes.
Okay.
So what happens is anything that you think that you could possibly save between the time, money, and hassle of you going directly to the agent and the risk that you're going to be taking versus having me negotiate on your behalf, protect you from making sure that the appraisal process is done right. All of the different things that I laid out to you on this checklist, you're going to have to deal with that on your own.
Yeah, can I just be an unrepresented buyer and not work with an agent at all?
You can do whatever you want. What I'm sharing with you at what risk, though, right? It's a huge, giant risk. And this is why I'm very confident that if you participate in my VIP buyer program, that it's more of a risk to go directly to the agent than to work with me to find you the right home, to walk you through this process, make sure I help you negotiate the home properly, make sure that you're not missing out on anything so by the time that you move in that home, it's the best experience possible. And I can promise you it's going to cost you more money, time, and hassle than my commission tenfold by not using me.
Okay, I'll sign.
So
Those are good. Does anybody else have any objections or anything else that they want to role play with Isaiah through?
I actually, excuse me, I actually am in a tough situation right now. And it only started when this whole compensation conversation has come about. I have sellers who are also looking to buy. We found them a property yesterday. I've been working with them for over a year. We have a great relationship. Um, Now they're at the issue, well, we're paying you 2.5% on the sale of our home because it's 5% we're splitting. Shouldn't that be enough for you to represent me on the buy side? And I've explained to them it doesn't work that way. I mean, I've talked to them, I'm blue in the face. I obviously need some verbiage or something to help me get over this hurdle. But the last I heard last night was realtors are overpaid. I don't understand why we have to pay this much. They definitely don't want to look at any houses where they have to compensate me. And they're even questioning if I were to reduce my commission on the buy side, would that help them with their cash to close? So I was really surprised by this. But that's where I'm at. So I'm like in a pickle.
yeah, first of all, that situation is not fun because it's like you're kind of like you're trying to achieve two goals at one time, and that can get confusing in their mind. They can kind of see them as the same process when they're really two different things, right? And that's what I'm
Right,
hearing. They're kind of seeing them as the same thing. It's like,
right.
and that's where if you have a really good listing presentation and a really good buyer presentation, and they can see all of the steps that you are going through, on like, here's the process of which my team is going through to sell your home. Here's the process of which we're going to have to go through to find you a home. This is at least 60 hours worth of work. And I think it's fair to say that I'm going to save you 60 hours of time, money, and hassle by using me than if you were to do this on your own or try to find somebody else to do it that's going to give you a discount and may not do it well. But here's my promise to you. This is what I'm delivering on. This is my checklist of what I'm delivering on, and it will be well worth the 60 hours of work I'm going to put into it. Or whatever the time is, right? So I'm not, like, just don't get caught up in, so Robin, at this point, I'm not saying that's going to turn them because it sounds like it's pretty far down, but what I would do is I would, before you talk to them next, is it sounds like it'd be worth your time because of a commission being on the line here, is to really map out your presentation and your checklist. And folks, here's the thing about the checklist. It also is great for expectations for after they sign the contract, because you can build that checklist into a client journey that as you're going down through it, they can be notified through your CRM or through whatever technology that you're using to manage this process. So you should do the checklist anyway, because it's going to solve a lot of problems, because most problems with expectations are because they're not on the same page with you. And you're doing all this work in the background, but your inside reality is different than their outside perception. And I want you to write that down. Anytime that there's a disconnect in commissions or process or service issues, because there is a disconnect in your inside reality versus their outside perception, but it's not their fault. It's our responsibility as CEOs to make sure that we do whatever we can to map that out clearly and create audio, visual, kinesthetic experiences for them to truly understand that process. And I promise you, you'll make more commission if you take the time to do that well, and you get like pig-headed, persistent, and detail that sucker out. Keep it simple when you're explaining it, but have that detail for the experience. You're going to make more commissions and you're going to get more referrals than anybody else in this market, because everyone else is going to be lazy about this, and it's going to be a complete shit show. And there's going to be disruption, and you're going to come out on top if you follow through on these things. Great question.
Thank
I
you.
hope that helped. Yep.
It did.
Anybody else have any objections or any concerns that we could maybe go through?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and drop this document in the chat here, and then Nicole, you can take this and feel free to disperse it however you want.
Sure.
I'm actually coming out with a video walkthrough of this document. You guys can feel free to check it out. I have an online university that I just launched. It's normally $297 a month, but I'm doing it for $97 a month while I'm getting the university checked out. So you can check out that university and you can buy one-off courses that you like, or you can just get access to all of the courses that I ever put out for $97 a month. If you guys want to check that out, and that will also give you an opportunity to check out other things that we do. So my core skill sets as a coach are making sure that you're able to monetize your database and grow your database, and then develop a framework to build and scale a team once your lead gen and lead conversion is on point. If you want to check out the university, that'd be a good starting point, and then you have an opportunity to learn more about other things that Nicole's participating in, along that client journey. And what makes the university different than other universities, folks, is I put out a new course every single month. So it's not like the university's constantly being added to, and the courses are very different. Have you ever taken a course where it's so complicated to get through the course, it's just, there's too much fluff in between that you just get distracted and you just stop taking the course? Has anyone ever done that before, bought in a course? And so all my courses, there's no fluff. It's literally just like step by step. And Nicole kind of I don't know if you've kind of started exploring that. This is how I train and coach. Here's step one, do this. Step two, do this. And so There's very little fluff, and it's all actionable items as you're going through the courses. And so a lot of people appreciate that. And then there's really good service and support as you're going along the lines. A lot like you saw here, how I gave you like step by step on what to go through. And no complicated PowerPoints, no fancy videos. It's like, here's step one, here's step two, here's the video to go along with it, contact support if you get stuck. And so I think you guys will appreciate that. The other thing that makes it different is I have over $2 million invested into artificial intelligence of my own money. So I also own a digital marketing and technology company that's really heavy into AI. And so I have a ton of courses out there and that I'm putting out there, as well as tools and recommendations of how you can integrate AI into your business. So you're not only being taught best practices, but also how to use AI within those best practices to take your business to the next level. And so if you want to go check any of that out, I'm just going to drop my website here. It's just isaiahcolton.com. And you can check out the different services that we have to offer at that website. And I hope you guys got a ton of value out of today. Nicole, that's pretty much what I have for today.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you are one of those people who like to check boxes, Isaiah's courses are for you. Like, yeah. I love to like check my little boxes off of what I've gotten done. Maria had a good point in the chat. She said, based on some combos, I feel like some home buyers are looking at buyer's agents as a luxury service. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think especially first-time home buyers, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and they're going to need us regardless. From what our broker team here in Michigan has dropped for us, as a listing agent, we are able to put on there like our negotiated on our exclusive right to sell contracts. We're able to put our commission on there and what happens if we have an unrepresented buyer, like say somebody who calls us from the sign or calls us from Zillow or whatever it may be, what that commission will look like. But if you are a buyer's agent who's coming, obviously, there's going to be some negotiations that are going to have to be had, and definitely some difficult conversations. I know our broker team has said, you're going to have to get comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations. And I think eventually we will have a dialogue and we will have our scripts and everything ready to go. And this will be kind of second nature to us. I think it is a big change right now. And it is going to affect a lot of people. We're just going to have to figure out how to overcome. I was listening to a Hustle Humbly podcast after I listened to the Tom Ferry one, and they were talking about how, agents who've been in the business 20 plus years, they were like the traditionalists, she gave them all labels, traditionalist. Then there was the people who came in, mid 2000s, they were more like the transitionalists. They were transitioning to more modern technology. Then we had the, 2020s who came in more as opportunists. And now we are survivalists. We're here. Who's going to survive? And I thought that is like the perfect analogy of, only the strong will survive. So we're going to have to really push through all of this. And I know the faces who are on here are all ready to push through. So I think if we can follow Isaiah's coaching and, set ourselves apart and do these buyer consults. I know for sure I have not been one that does strong buyer consults. I really just have never needed to. So now I'm in my mind, I'm like, how can I restructure things? How can I plan this more out and be more strategic about my buyer consultations instead of just kind of doing the phone consultation and hopping out to go show a house? I think it's going to be a lot more important to sit down and have these conversations and spend an hour with them prior to even going see homes.
That's a really great point, Nicole, is just, within that dialogue, I want to ask you guys this question is, how much are you focused on buyers or listings in this market?
Well, now I want to be focused all on listings.
So there's two conversations here. It's we got to get our buyer consultation together, but also if it's right for you, the winners are the listing dominators. That's who's going to really, really win big. They're not going to be the only people that win. The second to that will be the people that are really good at working with buyers. And that's one of the reasons why we've always chosen you know, when I was myself, my partner, were in production still, we chose to dominate the listing side of the business because it solves almost all problems that you ever encounter. Leads, listings, leverage, we've probably heard that before. It solves so many problems by getting good. Now there's more incentive than ever before because some people didn't want to become a dominant listing agent because it required advanced negotiation skills sometimes to really get, you know, people that you've not worked with you to want to work with you because of the commission conversation. But if you're going to have that and do all that work, so think about it, this is how I think about it. We're going to have to do all that work on the buyer side and like go through in-depth negotiations and do double the work to get them to buy a home. Why not just channel that energy to get more listings, right? So it's like more incentive than ever before to go over here. So that's kind of just a final thought you triggered in my mind, Nicole, as you were talking. So
yeah, well, and at the end of the day, though, I think you still got to keep in mind those people listing their houses, kind of like
they're also going to buy.
They're going to be buying a house, so you're always going to be on the side at some point.
That's a really good point, Cheryl. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you got to get it down either way is yeah, I think that's what you're saying, right? We got to get it down either way. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Isaiah, you gave us a lot of good points for everyone watching. If you're watching the recording, I will put the link to all of this out there for everybody. It's already in the chat, but I'll make sure when I post this video, we'll put that link out there as well. And if anyone has any questions, you know, I can attest, Julie can attest to Isaiah's coaching. He does a lot of really good stuff. And I mean, you know, we're doing listing domination stuff too. And he does a lot of really great stuff. So if anyone is really considering hiring somebody, hiring a coach, highly recommend Isaiah.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that.
Welcome. I should get paid for this.
Maybe you will. No, just kidding.
Christina asked where I'm going to be posting it. So it'll be in the Modern Agent Blueprint Facebook group. The video will go up on YouTube and we'll have the link there as well, as long as Isaiah is okay with that.
Yep, no problem.
All right, perfect. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much, Isaiah. Right on the dot, 12 o'clock. You are so good at this. It's like you do it for a living. I will talk to everybody soon. We'll see you next week. And Isaiah, we do want to have you back to go over buyer presentations.
Let's do it. Let me know. All
right. Thank you. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Have a
good day.
Good luck out there, people.